a lot of the towns and municipalities in the Durham region year over year are seeing a decline. So, something to keep in mind if you're looking to get into some of these markets. There are opportunities, but you just have to, essentially be out there and be active when you're searching for these properties.
This all makes sense. And I think that we're also in a period where there could potentially be some great opportunities coming up in your markets for investors to be purchasing. So anybody watching this at home right now, you need to understand, like, I did just close a property last week as well. Okay. So I'm still buying. The hosts of this show are still buying. And the reason why we're buying is because regardless of some of this uncertainty in the market long term, we can still make good short-term decisions, right? Cash flowing fundamental assets, I think, are still a play. If you find a good deal, and maybe it doesn't necessarily need to be purely cash flow focused, but if you find a great play, you've run the numbers, you've talked to your power team, you understand the deal and its numbers and its risk, and you have some exit strategies, I think there could be some great opportunities on the horizon. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Canadian Real Estate Channel. I'm Adam JD Martin, and today we've got Saman Habibi here to talk to us from Right at Home Realty and give us the actual Oshawa market update. And I know nothing about Oshawa again and still, so I'm just as excited as you guys are to find out what's going on there, what's going on with the numbers, what are the stats looking like. So yeah, take it away, please. Give us an update on this market.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks everyone for joining us and coming back to another episode. And Adam, to your point, you don't know what Oshawa is about. I feel like many people have the wrong perception of what Oshawa is. And, for a very long time, it's been labeled as GM town and manufacturing town. But, I can very well say that that's changed, and manufacturing accounts for a smaller portion of the economy now. Which is not a good thing, which is not a bad thing. But I think what it points towards is that it's becoming a diverse economy, which is good in any case, because it can withstand, the times of, hard times that the market goes through. But in any case, we'll jump right into it. And I would say that it's the Durham region and Oshawa have become a very popular spot for people to focus on when it comes to investing in properties, whether it's, looking at investment properties outside of the GTA, or whether it's to, look for a place to settle, with your family. With that said, we can jump right into the presentation and the numbers. So again, thank you everyone for joining us. What I want to do today is talk about the Durham region in general. We are a pretty large area. We start from Pickering in the west end and go all the way to Clarington in the east end. And we go all the way up north to cover the Scugog area. So we'll talk about the Durham region. We'll focus in on the city of Oshawa because that's where a lot of investors like to go. We'll talk about what September is looking like in terms of median prices. I'll give some of my thoughts on the market and what's going on high level. I also want to talk about rental data because I'm seeing a change in the rental data. And then I actually want to talk about, who you hire when it comes to working with a real estate professional. So if we look at the August data for the Durham region, before we jump into the numbers, maybe we'll quickly take a look at the map. And that's the map that I was talking to you about in terms of, having a large area that we cover. So Pickering, Ajax, Whitby, Oshawa, Clarington, all along the Lake Ontario, the 401 corridor. So all those areas are very popular areas for people to occupy and buy properties in. So we'll talk about Durham region in general, and then we'll dive right into Oshawa. So for the month of August, the median price in the Durham region was $854,000. That was down month over month compared to July of 2022. And this is what's exciting is that when we also look at it from a year over year number, and when I say exciting, I'm talking about people who are looking to get into the market. A lot of people have been kind of comparing, what's going on in the different markets versus the prior year. So are we at where we were last year in August before the madness started? And the answer is yes, we are in fact lower than where we were in August 2021. And then, if we kind of look at what's happened since the peak of February 2022, the Durham region was one of those areas where it saw a huge increase since pre-COVID. I think we were up around 30 to 35% in different areas, but now we're down. So since peak of Feb 2022, we're down 28% or down $327,000 since February 2022. If we look at some of the other areas in the Durham region, so, I think the first thing I'll point out is that people are going to see the 11% change and the 14% change in Brock and in Uxbridge. And they're going to say, well, if prices are coming down, how come these two areas are jumping up in median prices? And that's essentially because, there's a very small population of sales data in these areas. And there's quite a bit of outliers. So even though we're looking at median prices, Brock still is an area where there's a big range of prices when it comes to home prices, and same with Uxbridge. You have a lot of properties that sell in the higher end, so it's not unusual to see, for the month of August, to see perhaps 20 to 25 transactions, and then have 3 transactions that were over $2 million. So that's why those two areas are skewed. But then if we look at, the other popular areas, Ajax, Clarington, Oshawa, Pickering, if there's been a change or an uptick in price, it's been very small, and that's because these areas are fairly popular areas for people to occupy. So Ajax is a high demand area because it's very convenient for people who like that city living, but also want to have the option to go downtown for work. So it's always been a popular area. That's why there was that uptick in price. And then, the rest of the towns are taking a bit of a pullback in price, which is not bad. So if we look at Oshawa, fairly stable, but I would say it's still on the lower end. Pickering, a pullback, and Whitby, a pullback as well. So, this is not a bad sign for people looking to move into the area, into the Durham region, because it provides affordability. And then if we look at, again, we did talk about this high level, but if we look at year over year, what's happening in some of these areas, a lot of the towns and municipalities in the Durham region year over year are seeing a decline. So, something to keep in mind if you're looking to get into some of these markets, there are opportunities, but you just have to, essentially be out there and be active when you're searching for these properties. And I just wanted to quickly show, what the numbers look like in comparison to February 2022 peak. So I did say that the Durham region in general was down around 28%. But if we look across the board, everyone across the board is down as well. If we look into Oshawa in specific, so the median price in Oshawa is now $745,000. That is a slight uptick month over month of 0.7%. And year over year, it is down 1%. And what I noticed in Oshawa was that towards the end of August, so as vacations started ending and people came back in the last week or two, more so in the last week, there was a bit more activity and a bit more aggressive events happening in the market. So I was tracking a couple of properties, and in beginning of August, there wasn't a lot of activity when it came to offer night, but towards the end, there's a handful of properties that I was just following personally. I'm sure there was more, but with the handful that I was following, I was noticing a increased amount of showings and also an increased amount of offers coming onto these properties. Now, what's going on in September? So what I did was I pulled data for September. Today is September 14th. So the September data that we're seeing is as of September 14th. And, we're still seeing declines across the board. So if we look at some of the areas, so Durham in general is down 0.5%, Ajax down 7.5%, Clarington's down. Oshawa is slightly up, and I think that's expected because Oshawa did drop. And when we look at the amount of activities. There are more activities in Oshawa compared to the rest of the Durham region. So there's more activities, there's more inventory, there's more for people to choose from. So as a result, there's more supply, and that's why we're seeing a bit of an uptick there. And same with Whitby. So it's comforting to know that some areas are seeing a month-over-month increase. But I would say, as we head towards the later months, we're going to have better clarity on what's happening with prices. In terms of overall market and what I'm noticing in the market, the main thing has been interest rate announcements. So there was a recent interest rate announcement that took place in the U.S. and in Canada, and there's two more interest rate announcements coming on October 26th and December 7th. And based on what we're seeing with CPI numbers and inflation, I think it's safe to say that there's perhaps going to be one or two more interest rate hikes this year. And, I would say there's more uncertainty going into 2023. So these interest rate announcements are having a negative impact on pricing and on affordability. New listings in the Durham region are down 13% month over month. So which means the new supply coming to market is down. So this is going to have an impact when we talk about supply and demand, but sales are up 15%. So when I look at the low supply essentially has a positive impact on price, because as we have less supply, there's less for people to choose from. So the competition increases on these properties, and we're seeing with the amount of offers that these properties are getting. So this in result creates a bidding war, and as an impact, prices go up. But when we look at the quality of inventory that's coming to market, I'd say the quality of inventory is not really good. People don't have a lot of options, so you have to end up settling for a property, and perhaps you have to be putting in a bit more capex into these properties. And since these properties are not as nice and they don't show as well, I think this has a negative impact on price, because people are not going and bidding crazy amounts because it's a turnkey property. And the last thing I wanted to touch on was that the next 1 or 2 months is going to be important for us, because this is when we're going to see investors or speculators who purchase properties in January and February. People who perhaps are doing renovations. So now we've had 6 to 8 months of a quote unquote renovation period pass, and perhaps these properties are now coming closer to the finish line. So we're going to start seeing these properties come to market, and we're really going to start seeing investors show their hands. So are they going to be placing these properties on the market from a rental perspective, or are they going to be putting these properties onto the market to sell? I've been tracking some properties that flippers have brought onto the market, and unfortunately these properties are not selling. I think it's as expected based on how the market has changed when it comes to interest rates, but I think the next 1 or 2 months should give us a bit more clarity on prices, and to see if people are going to in fact take a loss on some of their properties, or they're in fact just going to convert them onto rentals. The next item that I want to talk about is days on market. And days on market is a metric that we essentially keep track of to see how long it takes to sell a property. So right now, the days on market is 26 days on market in the Durham region, and this is up significantly from 8 days on market in the peak of Feb 2022. So the message here is that if you're listing your house, I think you need to be patient, because the market is demanding more time. Buyers are more patient. They're not in a rush to get into the market. The foot is off the gas pedal. So you need to be patient if you're in the market, because this typically happens in a cyclical market where we have ups and downs. The days on market start to stretch. And if you're on the market, my message here would be, don't panic, because it's normal, and you essentially need to let it play out. You're going to have a wave of buyers come in, and then they're going to look at that property. They're going to set their eyes on that property. They're going to say, let's wait and see what happens in the next week or so. And then they're going to make a judgment call on whether they're going to come back to your property or not. And the last thing I'll say here is information on social media. So what I'm noticing right now is that, realtors are not that busy. And as a result, there's a lot of time to dedicate to content creation. And there's a lot of information on social media, specifically on TikTok and on Instagram. you're getting a lot of misleading information, people who don't necessarily understand the macroeconomics or the geopolitical space talking about real estate. And essentially, agents are giving out what I would call bad advice. You know, because there's no activity or low activity on resale properties, there's a lot of content on pre-construction projects, which has a lot of uncertainty right now. Because essentially, with pre-construction projects, I can close my eyes and tell you that 90% of the agents are going to talk to you about pre-construction projects being a great alternative because of two things: because of a delayed closing and a delayed or stretched out deposit structure. These discussion points are great in an up market, but if someone's trying to sell you a project because it has a delayed closing date, you need to just walk away from that project, and you need to stop listening to that information, because that is extremely dangerous right now. Anything delayed when it comes to real estate right now is extremely dangerous in my mind. If agents are talking about delayed closing periods being a good thing for a project, that's just criminal. And I think that they should have some consequences to face from Trev or any of the boards for that matter. So I think you need to be very careful with where you're getting your information from. If you have a doubt, always reach out to another person. Speak to family and friends, or speak to one or two other agents, just to get their perspective as well before you decide to jump into the market and purchase a pre-construction project.
Yeah, I think that's some very sound advice. There's a couple of things I really enjoyed about your presentation here. And one of the things is inside the statistics, right? It's very important for people to understand that when you're looking at some of those stats, you could easily spin things to say, oh, look at, I think Scugog was one of the ones there that just looked like it was hopping. But it's like, it's really important to understand, like, hey, this area has a smaller sample size and it is affected by larger sales. The other thing I completely agree with that you mentioned is we are likely to see two more increases in interest rate. And I would say it's a almost nil probability that we don't. And they could be high. Like if we look at what the Fed just announced the other day in the States, that's telling for us, right? 8.3%. That's a lot.
Right.
The conflict that's going on in the world right now is going to affect everything, right? Globalization has made macroeconomics very connected. And so that's where we have to, be anticipating these things. And I think that's where I think you just nailed it on the head with the pre-construction. If you're delaying things out, there's no way to understand what types of price corrections or movements we might see with increased interest rates and a decreasing liquidity in the market. If builders don't build, you're not getting that thing. So things to be aware of, right? But I think that this all makes sense. And I think that we're also in a period where there could potentially be some great opportunities coming up in your markets for investors to be purchasing.
Yeah, I mean, couple comments there. If you have a pre-construction project closing next year or the year after, start looking at your bank account and make sure you have funds, and start reading your contract to make sure that your development charges are capped. And if they're not, what is the max development charge? Start accounting for negative cash flow. When you purchased that pre-construction 2 years ago, they were negative 2 years ago. They're going to be negative even more next year or the year after. So if you got pre-construction come in, reach out to your agent and ask them, why was it so great 2 years ago and what's the story now? Hold these people accountable, because I'm sorry, I'm a real estate agent, but I look at what's happening in the pre-construction space, and it's kind of disgusting. So if you're getting into pre-construction, or if you have something closing, look at your paperwork, figure out the math, and start saving for it. And if you're going into, or someone's talking you into a pre-construction project, ask them one of two things. Ask them to show you the complete compensation package that they're receiving on a project that they're providing you. Just a note to people out there, some of these pre-construction projects are offering 3%, 4% cooperating commission. That's a $50,000-$60,000 paycheck for just simply showing you a floor plan. And some of these guys are, being sent on vacation to Italy, to Morocco. So really just figure out what the intentions are. And, not every single project that comes out is a great project. So that's that. And then Adam, the last thing I want to talk about, geopolitical, is that, right now we're seeing the market is very uncertain because of what we're seeing based on what is being, provided to us by big media. There's a lot of other geopolitical issues that are not being talked about,
Of
in
course.
Asia, in the Middle East, oil and gas. This is just, we're just seeing the impact of what we know. There's a lot of things that we don't know, and perhaps, they're going to shed light on it in a year or two, or, maybe this winter or next year. So, I would say there's uncertainty in the market, and just be educated.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I would just say broad
Yes.
uncertainty, right? We're
Yeah.
looking at
Yeah.
Yemen, we're looking at Indonesia, we're looking
Oh,
at
yeah. Yeah.
Ukraine, and there's so much going on in the world right now. And
Yeah.
if you don't even
Yeah.
know those three things and you're listening to
Yeah.
this,
Yeah. There's
open your
Taiwan, there's
eyes up, right?
Armenia. Yeah,
Yep.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
So I think I'm in general agreement. I would say though that I think there is still lots of potential. Okay. So anybody watching this at home right now, you need to understand, like, I did just close a property last week as well. Okay. So I'm still buying. The hosts of this show are still buying. And the reason
Yeah.
why we're buying is because regardless of some of this uncertainty in the market long term, we can still make good short-term decisions, right? Cash flowing fundamental assets, I think, are still a play. If you find a good deal, and maybe it doesn't necessarily need to be purely cash flow focused, but if you find a great play, you've run the numbers, you've talked to your power team, you understand the deal and its numbers and its risk, and you have some exit strategies, I think there could be some great opportunities on the horizon. So I'm
Yeah.
interested for seasonal market too. Fall is going to
Yeah.
be, awesome for us. So, and then
Yeah,
winter.
I'll speak. Boots on the ground here in the Durham region. I have a listing in Oshawa, 36 acres farmland, in Oshawa, listed for 1.5 million, and I'm getting offers on this property, and people are sending me offers that I know my clients are not going to take. They want 90% VTB at very favorable rates. Very small deposits, but that to me is people, throwing offers out there to see what can catch. And hey, maybe someone does take this offer, but it hasn't been attractive. But it's nice to see that people are still hunting for it. And I'm doing the same thing. There's a sixplex here that I'm constantly working, and I'm asking for the moon. I'm asking for a VTB. I'm asking for vacant possession. I'm lowballing the offer. And hey, there's a ton of them out there right now, and we're still active. My clients are active. We're looking. I'm looking myself. So yeah, I mean, there's negativity, and there's, what's happening in the market, but opportunities, yes, are still out there, and you should be hunting for them right
Awesome, man. Well, I really appreciate it. Is there anything else you wanted to touch on today?
now. Yeah, just a couple of things. What are sellers doing? I'd say sellers, there's really no urgency right now, to sell. The belief is that in a year from now, the market's going to be a lot better. And I think, there's a tweet here from Ben Rabideau, which said that Canadians have become conditional to believe that any rate hike is temporary and rates will drop soon. The long-term trajectory is that rates always go down, and housing downturn is always a short-term problem. So look, Canadians are conditioned to believe this, and this might be true, but be educated in what's going on in the market. Um, I wanted to quickly touch on, what does the mortgage payment look like on a $1 million purchase at 3% versus a $854,000 purchase, which is the price today at 5.24%. And I think we can, very simply show that the payments are essentially the same. But I'd say right now you're in a better situation, because if you were to get into the market at August 22 prices at 854, let's say, for a median price, your benefit is that if the market does in fact, if the interest rate market does in fact change, and this 5.24 comes down, you're going to be in a much better situation. You're going to have a smaller principal that you need to essentially bring down and reduce. So I would say, when you look at affordability and what you can afford, payments are essentially very similar, but you just have the option of having a smaller principal. And I'll just take 2 minutes here. I want to talk about rental data, because I'm seeing rental data come down, pull back a little bit. So this is median rental data in the Durham region. And as we can see, Clarington is down, Oshawa is stable, Pickering is down, Scugog is down, Uxbridge is down, and Whitby is the strongest market right now. So for investors, just be aware of this, and kind of, if you're used to, using numbers from a year ago or 6 months ago, build yourself a buffer room because rental rates are going down slightly. 80 Bond, this is a luxury apartment building in Oshawa. They're going to be flooding the market. This is a builder that's built a high-rise, a 40-unit apartment building, and they're holding on to these and just renting them out. So there's going to be an influx of rentals coming to market, and this is going to have an impact on the rental prices. And I'm hoping to keep track of this and update investors. And last thing, who you hire matters, guys. Adam, I had a property that I presented on this channel a couple weeks ago, or a couple months ago, sorry. And then, a week or two ago, I had someone call me and say they had purchased that property, and they were asking me questions on, what's the average rent on the property, asking me for referrals, asking me why they're not getting top rents. Other people are calling me, asking me to review paperwork to get out of a deal because they worked with another agent. The message here is that, guys, everyone has a friend or an uncle or a cousin who's an agent. Work with someone in the area so you don't get burnt. Interview several agents, ask for credentials. This is what I give all my clients. I tell them how long I've been in the business, how long I've been in the Durham region, how many homes I've sold in the last 2 years, some of my awards, and I just give them some of my expertise just so they have some comfort. So if anyone out there is looking to interview agents, these are some of the things that you can ask for to see. But otherwise, if anyone wants to hop on a call with me, I'm more than happy to do that. We leave my calendar link in the show notes below, and I'm always happy to jump on a call. And I do take a lot of calls with people who watch the show, and we have great conversations. So if anyone else wants to do that, feel free to get in contact with me.
Yeah, that's fantastic, man. And I definitely second that notion. I mean, you have to have local support in your power team right now. They have to be experts in the market, and they have to be able to give you great advice, as well as some of those other, I like that support section you had there. You're going to be working with lenders that work well with you and your clients. And so I think if you get a great real estate agent, I would take suggestions from them on who else you should be using, including the lawyer, your mortgage agent, inspectors, appraisers, everything, right? Anything we can get from our power team to deepen the relationship and be able to work symbiotically, right? That's how this works. We need to have a great power team. They got to be local to the city you're buying in. I'm a firm believer in that. So
yeah,
excellent, man. Well, I really appreciate you coming on and giving us the Oshawa update today. I know everybody gets a ton of value out of this, us included on the channel. So great discussion today, and it's nice to see the stats and see where we're at.
Thanks, Adam. Appreciate it.
Awesome. If you guys aren't subscribed yet to this channel, please get down there, subscribe, hit the notification bell. We're back here every month giving you updates on these markets. And this is information, again, from local experts that you can, learn to know, like, and trust, and hopefully eventually work with so that you can take advantage of some of this expertise. So thanks again for watching.